You've been told that solitude is a red flag, a sign that you are antisocial, broken, or somehow behind. But if you would rather be alone, look closer. In the quiet hours when the phone is face down and the city softens to a distant hum, something rare appears, like stars that only reveal themselves once the streetlights fade. There is a kind of man who doesn't flee company out of fear. He steps out of the crowd because his compass points beyond the usual maps. He isn't bored with people. He is faithful to a direction only he can hear, the way a lighthouse keeps turning even when the harbor sleeps. If that sounds like you, you may not be withdrawing. You may be preparing. Solitude, for a chosen man, is not an escape hatch but a training ground. It is the place where the noise of comparison dies and the voice of assignment grows distinct. In the absence of applause, you learn to approve your own alignment. In the absence of witnesses, you discover whether your actions still honor your word. When the room is empty, masks have no audience, and the man remains. That remaining, that staying with yourself, is where your center hardens into something trustworthy. This is not a sermon against friendship or family. It is a reminder that purpose asks for privacy before it asks for performance. The furnace is not the stage, but it makes the steel. So, if you'd rather spend another evening with your notes, your prayers, your plans, your craft, understand what may be happening. You are not missing out. You are moving in. You are not falling behind. You are falling into place. Tonight, when the world scrolls past in flashes, keep the light turning. The ships you'll guide later are counting on the man who tends the lamp now. You learn quickly that solitude is not the same as shrinking. Isolation is a wound that closes you off. Solitude is a vow that opens you up. One corrodes trust and makes you suspicious of every knock on the door. The other sharpens trust and lets you recognize the right knock when it finally comes. If you would rather be alone, you are likely learning to tell your hunger from the cravings that waste you. You start noticing which meetings leave your mind scattered like confetti and which hours alone stitch it back together. You see that a quiet evening is not empty. It is a room where your future can sit down and get specific. A chosen man lets the silence lengthen until the truth arrives. He lets the urge to be seen pass and waits for the need to be honest. In that waiting, he finds the difference between speed and momentum. Speed is impressive for a moment, like a spark from flint. Momentum is the flame that keeps walking forward, fed by small, steady acts that no one applauds. An hour of reading when no one expects it. 10 careful repetitions after your arms want to quit. 1 page written when the page laughs back at you. These are not glamorous. They are vows paid in installments, and the total becomes a life you can trust with your name. People will confuse your choices as judgments on theirs. They will ask why you do not go out more, why you spend Saturday mornings with a notebook instead of noise. Smile and keep your ground. Solitude is not a verdict against others. It is a jurisdiction for your standards. You are learning the difference between the always available and the truly aligned. You are discovering the boundaries are not walls around your heart, but fences around your time, so the harvest is not eaten by wandering cattle. You are understanding that integrity is not a single decision, but an address you keep returning to, even when the road is muddy and the lights are dim. In the quiet, you also learn to sit with the unflattering parts of yourself, the impatience, the pride that wants to win the argument more than keep the friendship, the fear that dresses up like ambition and calls every delay a conspiracy. Solitude gives you nowhere to hide, and that is mercy. You begin to tell your reflection, not yet, when it demands shortcuts. You begin to say, again, when the work asks for another round. You begin to notice how much of your so-called laziness was just a lack of aim. With aim, energy returns. With aim, time stretches. With aim, even a small room becomes an arena. There is a surprising tenderness here too. You start caring for your tools, your body, your words. You keep promises to yourself the way you would keep a promise to a friend. You forgive yesterday's failure and try again with a clearer plan. You treat sleep as part of training and not as an afterthought. You learn to end the night before your mind begins to beg for more input. You discover that quiet is not the absence of life. It is the oxygen that keeps your purpose from choking. You begin to notice how solitude changes the way you enter rooms. You no longer arrive to be filled. You arrive already carrying something. The conversation stops being a hunt for approval and becomes an exchange of provisions. You listen longer, you speak slower, and the silence between sentences doesn't frighten you because you've learned that silence can be a bridge, not a gap. People feel the difference even if they can't name it. They sense that you are rooted, and root draws root. The right eyes will find you not because you shouted the loudest, but because your quiet had gravity. This shift doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you responsible. A chosen man knows that solitude without service curdles into selfishness. The point of the mountain is not to live there forever, but to return carrying weather the valley needs. So you check your motives before you decline the invitation, and you ask a better question than, do I feel like going? You asked, does this align with what I'm building? If the answer is yes, you show up fully, phone put away, eyes present. If the answer is no, you bow out cleanly and without apology. The way a craftsman doesn't apologize to the wood for not turning it into a chair, it was never meant to be. There will be days when solitude cuts, when old loneliness knocks with a familiar rhythm and every corner of your room looks like a verdict. On those days, you don't romanticize the grind. You move. You take a purposeful walk. You place your hands on the workbench. You call a mentor who won't flatter you. You read the page that has a track record of calming your storms. You remember that devotion is not a feeling. It is a direction you keep choosing. And if you find strategies that steady you, say them out loud somewhere. Leave markers. The road is easier to follow when the travelers talk to each other. If anything in this is landing, speak up. Tell me which line made you straighten your back, or where solitude pinches the hardest for you right now, because your comment might be the sentence another man needs to keep going when his room feels too quiet. Share the habit that brought your focus back, or the boundary that saved your energy. And let's turn this space into a small workshop where iron still sharpens iron, even across a screen. Your voice here isn't noise. It's proof that the lighthouse is seen from the sea. You begin to measure your life by the promises you keep when no one is watching. The calendar stops being a museum of other people's urgencies and becomes a map of your vows. You block time for practice as if it were an appointment with a person you respect, because it is. You adjust the small things that compound, the evening routine that protects tomorrow morning, the reading that keeps your mind supplied with clean lumber, the order you bring to your space so your attention doesn't leak through 100 tiny cracks. You train your appetite to be patient, to let results ripen at their natural pace. And in that patience, you find a new kind of strength that isn't loud but doesn't break. Solitude also clarifies your economics. You learn the price of yes. You see how every commitment spends a currency you can't counterfeit, hours you will never see again. So you become careful with your signatures. You stop renting your focus to low-stakes drama. You stop letting strangers dictate your mornings. You stop accepting invitations that flatter your ego but mortgage your mission. This caution doesn't make you rigid. It makes you available to the right work at the right time. When the call aligns, you can say yes with both hands because nothing else is quietly claiming them. People may criticize what they can't categorize. They will test you to see if the old version of you still answers the door. You don't fight every rumor or explain every boundary. You let the work speak the longest sentence in the room. You answer disrespect with distance, not theatrics. You remember that elegance is a form of force. That composure is evidence you know where you are going, and that a man who knows his lane doesn't need to swerve to prove he has a car. This path reforms your relationships. You value fewer friendships, deeper. You become a presence others can lean on because you've learned to carry your own weight. You are not captivated by constant novelty. You are moved by reliability, by people who show up and keep showing up. Your love becomes a verb with a schedule. You tell the truth without heat. You apologize without theater. You forgive without turning yourself into a doormat again. You choose to be difficult to knock over and easy to trust. In time, the quiet gives you a thicker sense of meaning. You stop chasing the feeling of being seen and begin pursuing the reality of being known by those who matter. You build work that could bear your signature, even if your name were removed. You learn to leave behind artifacts that help the next person start farther ahead than you did. And when you finally return from your private hours to the public square, you don't arrive empty-handed. You bring a steadiness that calms rooms, a clarity that shortens meetings, a craft that makes tomorrow simpler for people who may never know your story, but will live better because you lived yours with intention. Here is where the quiet delivers you back to the world. If you would rather be alone, it was never about building a bunker. It was about building a backbone. You have learned to hear the signal beneath the static, to keep your word when there is no audience, to offer presence that does not wobble. Now take that steadiness with you. Let your work carry the proof. Let your choices underline your name. When the room grows noisy again, remember the lighthouse that kept turning while everyone slept, and turn your light as if someone out at sea is depending on it, because someone is. If this spoke to you, leave a thought in the comments and tell me which line you will carry into tomorrow, or what practice has helped you hold your ground when the night felt long. I want to hear from men building in the quiet so other men can recognize the trail. And if you want more like this, subscribe now so these messages keep finding you on the days you need them most. We will keep meeting in the calm between storms, and we will keep walking